from an understanding of what's not our economic drivers. It's about who we are as a people, and a lot of that mental map to understand ourselves as a people and as a civilization. You really are very well informed if you go back to say, well, what was happening there? What was Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus? What numbers, Deuteronomy? What does that tell us? What do we want to learn from that? And there's a lot to be learned from that. Taking it forward, I think that there's so much to be learned in terms of the fact that so many of our clashes around the world now come from extremism and fundamentalism in the Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions, where we all shared the same common root as the tribes of Abraham. So I find it, I'm very informed. If people are worried about what kind of theology I'm interested in, Karen Armstrong, Battle for God, that kind of analysis I find extremely useful, not only in understanding who we are right now on this planet and in this country, but also understanding where the dangers lie in becoming so secular that people of faith and religion feel they have no place. Similarly, the dangers of the fundamentalist stream that that has been responsible for so many horrors, the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, the blowing up of the Twin Towers. I mean, horrors in the name of the same God. So I think understanding how we can have better understanding and tolerance, and not just tolerance but acceptance, coming from an understanding that yes, as at least Karen Armstrong's analysis is, that all great peoples and civilizations recognize that they have one foot in logos and one foot in mythos. And you're on seriously dangerous grounds when you try to decide your mythos is literally true. And you're on dangerous grounds when you decide that there's no room in your society for larger truths expressed as myths because you're completely rooted in how much money can I make right now. So there's a balancing that our society needs.
Speaking of money, and I'll leave this off as the last question because I know you better know. A lot of people, I guess, generalized people think the Green Party is a leftist party. It's a party of the left. A lot of your policy, fiscal policy, is very conservative. What are some of the myths that you'd like to explode about that?
Thanks. Well, as a party that recognizes that the limits to growth, we're on a finite planet in terms of our ecological situation. We must live within our means. We should live off the Earth's interest and not dig into the capital, as it were. And we have the same approach to our economy. After all, economy and ecology both have the same root word, ecos, which is home. So we want to have balanced budgets. We don't want deficit financing. We don't want to accumulate debt. We want to pay down debt. We want to give tax fairness to our middle class. The middle class is the bulwark of democracy in any civilization or culture. So we want to bring in income splitting. Well, we're the only party in Canada right now calling for income splitting. And yet some would say that's a policy of the right. We want to ensure that we reduce corporate tax rates tied to the incentive of reducing greenhouse gases. We want to maintain a healthy manufacturing sector, which has to do with economic policies which are quite different from Mr. Harper's. Mr. Harper's economic policies have been high risk and have done damage to our economic health and to our fundamentals. He's actually been the first Prime Minister since 1961 to preside over a period when our productivity index went negative. That's the first time, literally since 1961. At the same time, the U.S. productivity increased. So that productivity gap, which is a key indicator of economic health, worsened under Stephen Harper, just as he had the biggest spending budget of any Prime Minister in Canadian history. Well, if you have any kind of root values as a small c conservative, you don't want to see your government overspending at the same time that they make stupid cuts, like cutting the GST. No economist in this country thought that that was wise because it doesn't stimulate the economy. All it does is deprive the government of the revenues it might need, and certainly you want to cut where it helps. Income taxes and payroll taxes, corporate taxes, and direct more money to low-income Canadians. So if I'm exploding a myth, and I sure hope I can do it during the leaders' debates, it'll be that we're a one-issue party.
Would you raise the GST if you got back into power?
Yes, we would. We would raise the GST 1% to 6% so that we would have $3 billion a year dedicated funding to municipalities in this country, because that's where we live. We live in small towns, we live in big cities, and with that 1% GST, which I don't believe most people will feel, because I can't find anyone who tells me they felt like they were richer when it went from 6 to 5. Did anyone feel like they suddenly had more money? I missed it, So 6% GST would give us $3 billion a year for things we really need at the community level. Better mass transit, better sewer and water facilities, cleaning up our brownfield sites to liberate billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars of high-value real estate in the middle of our communities is off limits because of fairly minimal levels of contamination. And at the same time, we need better recreation areas, bike paths, and so on. So our commitment to municipalities is, I think, one that Canadians will understand and applaud. So far, at every town hall meeting I've had, whether in my riding in Nova Scotia or out in Port Alberni, BC, when you explained, would you pay 1% more in your GST to know your community had stable funding, $3 billion a year to where we lived, to the services we need, to advance the common good? And everywhere I go, people say, yes, they will.